Hello, Frontline History viewers. Today we're going to be talking about what it was like to be a paratrooper during D-Day in 1944. Let's get right into it. June 6, 1944. Hundreds of American paratroopers sat quietly inside their transport planes flying across the English Channel. In just a few minutes, the red lights would turn green, and they would jump into the darkness over Nazi-occupied France. Many of these soldiers had never been in combat before, and this was the beginning of D-Day, and many of the men preparing to jump were from the legendary 101st Airborne Division. But what was it actually like to jump into Normandy that night? On the night of June 5th, 1944, thousands of American, British, and Canadian paratroopers boarded planes bound for Normandy, France. Not all of these men would return home. Most of them would either get killed by German guns or never find their units and spend the rest of the war in a POW camp. But what really was it like? Not a lot of people actually know the sacrifices that a lot of those men went through. I don't even really know it, if you'd really like to say that, but I don't either. I just want everyone to kind of understand what it was been like. I mean, just think of it. You were in a plane, and now probably some of you have rode in a modern airliner. I have, and they're allowed themselves, and that has a pressurized cabin. Just think of this, though. You're flying 500 feet above the English Channel at night. This is before, like, a lot of the modern stuff that we have. And you're sitting in there, and you know, probably in 20 minutes, you're going to jump out of the back of that airplane into something that you have no idea if you, the guy next to you, the guy across from you will ever return from. I mean, I think, I don't know the exact percentage, but I know that quite a few people probably died on the jumps. The Nazis had flooded fields to drown paratroopers as they landed. I mean, and you're not just jumping with, like, just what you have on. You are jumping with what you have on, and then a lot of times you're also jumping with a 60-pound bag attached to your leg. Depends on what your role is. Like, I've read a book about a Canadian paratrooper. They had a Piat. This is a little bit of history, too. The Piat is the British anti-armor weapon of World War II. It used a spring to launch pretty much mortar rounds. They're pretty close to them. At tanks, I think, I'm not entirely sure, you might want to fact check me on this. I think it could pin the side armor of a Tiger, but I'm not entirely sure of that. Because I don't exactly know what ammunition it used. I do know, because of a different book I have, they had homemade warheads for these sometimes. Like, the British Guard had built homemade warheads for Piats. And I don't know if they're 100%, if they were very effective, but, I mean, that is a cool thing about them. But, back to kind of the other stuff. Many of them checked their weapons one last time. Others sat quietly in their thoughts. Outside the plane, the skies were full of hundreds of aircraft. So there was a lot of aircraft going on Normandy, France. At the time that this would have been happening, that the paratroopers would, this would have been 12:30 a.m. in the morning. So there's probably not going to be fighters with them, but there's a lot of stuff other than your aircraft in the sky, and that would be flak. Flak was considered one of the scariest things for a plane crew in World War II. I actually know someone who's a B-17 crew member. I've talked to him a few times. And he says that was the scariest thing to ever, like, go up against. The fighters weren't near as scary as what flak was, because one hit from flak could tear your B-17 apart. Now, this is talking about B-17s. These are C-47s. These, like, B-17 is armored a little bit. Not a whole lot, but it is a little bit armored. C-47 is not near as armored. Like, there were a lot of times that flak ripped off parts if it even hit close, because it sends out little metal shards, probably about the size of this battery here, and it will rip apart planes. And that little aluminum cloth on there is not very thick. Like, not aluminum cloth. Just a little bit of aluminum sheet is what's around the outside of C-47. It's not, like, really thick. And you're just sitting inside there like this. And you're packed in it. And that's not even, like, the worst position. You could be in the gliders. The gliders are the really scary ones because they're made of cloth. They're not even made of metal. But, as the planes approached France, the mission became more dangerous. German anti-aircraft guns, began firing into the sky, and bright explosions of flak lit up the night. The pilots were trying to avoid enemy fire, but in the sudden tums and changes in the altitude made it much harder to stay on course. And this is how, when you go and you hear about things, the paratroopers were all over the place. You got some paratroopers that landed close to their mark, and then you got some that were as much as 13 miles off. Like, that's a long way. 13 miles is what? 13 miles is like 19 kilometers, I think. 20 maybe. It's a lot, but as the planes reached Normandy, the jump masters inside the aircraft began preparing the men to exit the plane. Paratroopers stood up and hooked up their static lines. Static line is, it's yellow. You've probably seen them in movies, or if you watch, like, military videos. You just hook it to a wire that runs above your head. And so, a lot of people think that you have to pull your parachute. Like, the military, they don't want you to do that because people are freaking out when they're getting shot at, and they might forget it. So they hook you up to the static line, and when you jump, it pulls that chute for you. You get maybe about 5 seconds before that chute comes out. Also, another thing that video games especially get wrong, those parachutes are not controllable. You have no control over, like, especially a World War II one. Even the modern ones, though, they are just above your head, and they are just to slow your fall, if they do that at all. I heard a statistic, and this is with modern parachutes. It was probably worse back then. You still hit the ground at 11 miles an hour, which doesn't seem like a lot until you think there are a lot of people in the United States, at least, because we're all fat, that can't even run 11 miles an hour. So, like, you gotta take that into account. But as they waited for the signal, the jump light inside their aircraft was red, and then suddenly, it turned green. The jump master shouted, "Go! Go! Go!" One by one, the paratroopers stepped out the door into the dark skies over Normandy. Now, if you're thinking about that, it's dark. It's probably 1 in the morning by the time they were over Normandy. Maybe 1:30. So, it's not like it's bright out. You are jumping into the unknown. The only thing that is lighting anything up is German tracers and flak, and that is not a comforting sight. Below them, tracer rounds and explosions lift up the ground. Some soldiers landed in fields, others in hedgerows. Some even landed in the flooded areas. That's what I was talking about earlier. They flooded the fields to drown paratroopers. Many landed far from where they were supposed to. We also talked about that part. Because of the bad weather, anti-aircraft fire, the pilots were trying to avoid enemy defenses. Many of the paratroopers were dropped miles away from their intended landing zones. Instead of the landing together in organized units, soldiers from different companies and regiments found themselves scattered across the countryside. Small groups quickly formed and began trying to find their objectives. Despite the confusion, the paratroopers continued their mission. See, they didn't have a choice. I mean, yeah, you can go hide in a building until the invasion force, but where they were at, a lot of them probably would have still had to fight their way back to the invasion force with what food they had, because they were probably still, I think it took them a month to get out of the beachhead. Like, they had the towns around Normandy, but they weren't very far into France for a long time. not a long time, about a month. But till about... But once they did get out of Normandy, I think they raced pretty far, because it was the winter of 44 that they got into the Bulge. And so, that's the Ardennes Force. That's about 350 miles. They had to move pretty fast. Which, for me, that'd be about to Washington from where I'm at. Because of... In many cases, just a few paratroopers fought German forces much larger than themselves. Even though the airborne landings were chaotic, they played a crucial role in the success of D-Day. Paratroopers disrupted German communications, destroyed key defenses, and prevented German reinforcements from reaching the beaches. By the time Allied troops landed on the Normandy beaches later that morning, many important roads and bridges had already been secured. The scattered paratroopers of the 101st Airborne had helped make the invasion possible. So, D-Day remains one of the most important military operations in history, and the men who jumped into Normandy that night showed incredible courage. On this channel, I want to continue making videos about World War II, and a lot about the soldiers who fought in it. And here is a goal for the channel. I'm probably going to do this anyway, but I just want to set it as a goal, because if I end up getting it before we get to 100 subscribers, then I'll find something else. We'll get it 100 subscribers. We're getting something at 100 subscribers. Right now, I am going to get, because if you all have seen my channel, like the banner and stuff, you know I'm doing World War II stuff about the 101st Airborne Division. I'm going to buy a World War II. This is the Normandy. It's going to be Normandy. 101st Airborne Division. M1 helmet, the 1942, the M19, the M42 paratrooper uniform, the webbing, entire kit, even a replica M1 Grand, because I'm not old enough to have a real one. Maybe an airsoft one, because I do like airsoft, and it would be fun to have one. But probably the replica. Another thing that I will be doing is I will be at D-Day. I don't know. Might be at D-Day, Ohio this year. So if anyone's going to be there, you might be able to try to find me. So, weapons. Some of my favorite weapons come out of World War II. Probably a lot of people's favorite weapons come out of World War II. For the Germans, we're going to start with the Germans. We'll go to the British, Canadians, and then the Americans last, because Americans is what I know the most about, so there'll be a lot of them. For the Germans, common weapons, because of the time, would probably be, you'd probably see K98s, Gewehr 43s, not a whole lot of them, but you'd see them. K98s would be the most common. That's the standard rifle of the German military during World War II. MP40s, the German submachine gun. The German submachine gun, it held 32 rounds, and from what I've heard, it did not have semi-auto. It was full auto, because I don't even think it had a safety. You'll have to go check that one. I'm not entirely sure. Also, they had the MP41. The MP41 is an MP40 with a wooden stock. I'm not a fan of the way they look. I'll show one right here. That's an MP41. They're not the coolest. Like, they're not very cool, but they were there. Even some things that could be there would be PPSHs. That sounds weird, because if you even played Warzone, you know that the PPSH is a Russian-built gun. And it is. But the Germans loved them so much that they even made a conversion for PPSHs to fire their 9x19 Luger. And they actually issued them all over the fronts that they were throughout. Like, I found once a picture of a Canadian using a PPSH-41, not from Lend-Lease, because they had picked it up off of a German who had picked it up. Well, the German had probably not picked it up. He'd probably got it from a Russian, or someone had got it from a Russian. It had been reissued to this German in France, and a Canadian paratrooper had picked it up when he found it. Now, and there were multiple guns that they did this with. You can find German-captured Thompsons in, the Eastern Front with Russia and the Soviet Union. You can find M1 Grands over there too, not near as common. That's not the case with the Shermans. The Shermans are, like, tanks are always Lend-Lease. But back to what we were doing. Another German weapon would be the 42 and the MG42 and the MG34. I'm putting them both together because they're both machine guns, and they were both kind of filled the same role. The MG34 was the earlier variant. You can tell it because it doesn't have near the blocky look. Like, MG42s are kind of built like a brick. The 34 is rounded and stuff. I'm pretty sure it was more reliable, I think I've heard that somewhere, that because they used them more on the Eastern Front, and that's where, because the 42s, they fired so quickly that I don't think they were very reliable. But, I don't think I can say it on YouTube, but the 42s were called the Mustaches Man's, Buzzsaw. You probably all know, if you're watching my channel, you know who I'm referring to. But they fired, like, 1,200 rounds a minute. That's pretty high. I'm pretty sure that's what the 249 Saw fires. But, another German weapon would be, actually, I can't really think, I mean, the STG-44 might be on Normandy. That probably wouldn't be, though, because I think it was finished its production phase. I mean, its design phase in May, so it probably wouldn't be there by June. It could be, though. On to the British weapons. And I think I'm actually just going to combine Britain and Canada for this one, because Canada was a British colony, so they used a lot of British weapons. British weapons of the time would be the Sten gun, which is the one with the magazine out the side. You can see it over here. That's a Sten gun. They made two variants. One a suppressed one, which that might be used by paratroopers. I've not seen a picture of one, but I bet there's one out there. The Enfield SMLE, probably all the variants. Maybe not the early variants, but like a lot of the variants would be there. The M1928 Thompson, the Tommy gun, the gangster one. It has the foregrip and the drum mag. The British ones may not have the foregrip, but I know they still have the drum mag, because a lot of the paratroopers liked those. So that's also probably what the Canadians would use. The Americans. For Americans, we have... hold up. Back in Britain 1 second. The Webley. Probably one of my favorite revolvers. Not my top favorite. My top favorite is the Colt Peacemaker, but the Webley is one of the coolest revolvers I've ever seen. It just gives off... I don't know what it gives off, but it gives off cool vibes. But, okay, to America. In America, they had the M1911, which is the gun that won both World Wars. I'm a gun nerd, too. Used 45 ACP, which is the... I don't know what ACP stands for. If someone knows what ACP stands for, put it down in the comments section, because I don't. That would be pistols, would be the most common, would be the Colt 1911. For submachine guns, you have the Thompson M1A1, which is not a Tommy gun. They're two different guns. They're not the same gun. Get it right. So you had the Thompson M1A1 and the Tommy gun. The Tommy gun is it has a different breech. The breech on the Tommy gun is up here. The breech on the the slide on the Thompson's down here. Better for military. I don't know. M3 grease gun, the thing that looked like a grease gun. For other weapons, you would have the M1 carbine. I'm going to go through both variants because the other one's my favorite, and I'm not... You'd have the regular M1 carbine, which is the full wooden stock variant, and then one of my favorite, like, my all-round favorite paratrooper weapon ever, the M1A1 carbine. Coolest thing ever. Like, I'm putting another picture up. M1A1 carbine. Cool. Really cool. Like, you can even see the fully stock right there. That's cool. That's super cool. I mean, you could, like, they even make bags, and I'm using an M1 Grand for my, thing, because I want that for my, my rebuild. But, oh wait, yeah, I haven't told you guys about that yet. You'll see that in the end of the video. But, they even make a scabbard for the folded M1A1 carbine, which is kind of cool. Then, rifles, you have the legendary M1 Grand. Ping! You got the M1 Grand, probably the main rifle. I don't know if the Johnston 1941 was ever actually used, and I don't think paratroopers used the Springfield. Springfield A3 was a rifle used during World War II, even by the Americans still. I will put the link to where I figured that out about. World War Wisdom. He is where I got a lot of the influence of even this channel idea from. He's like one of my favorite World War II YouTubers. He's probably a lot of people's favorite World War II YouTuber. But, machine guns really for the Americans is only the BAR. We'll go back to the British because I actually forgot their machine gun, which is the Bren. The Bren gun, I almost feel like AK mags were just Bren mags that were put in 7.62, because they look so similar. But that's the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I have a channel goal, and you guys need to listen to this, because this is something really cool that I think a lot of you, that if you came to this channel, like searched it up, history stuff, you found my channel, you're gonna like this. I am going to, if we get to 100 subscribers, you gotta get to 100 subscribers. May not be, this may not be, if I get enough money for it, I'm going to buy it before 100 subscribers anyway, a full reproduction World War II paratrooper uniform for the 101st Airborne. If you haven't figured out, I love the 101st Airborne Division, but that's what I'm going to get a full uniform for that, and replica rifle, everything. That's what I was talking about when I said I'm using M1 Grand for my thing. That is what I'm talking about. But, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.
Oh, we are the boys, we are the lads in khaki. We are the boys that are always getting hearty. Oh, we don't give a screw when we hear the bugle blow. The good old call that suits us all is come to the cookhouse door.